Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really big question, one that affects pretty much everyone. Is public debt, this massive government borrowing, a ticking time bomb?
Or is it maybe a necessary tool for managing an economy? It's complex.
Exactly. So we're going to dig into the numbers, sure, but also the real-world impacts and maybe some new forces making it grow faster.
Right, looking beyond just the headline.
Our mission today is really to give you a clear picture of what this all means for you and, well, for the future.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so unpacking this, public debt isn't just about 1 year's budget shortfall, right? It's the pileup.
Precisely. It's the accumulation of all those past deficits.
Yeah.
And the key metric everyone throws around is the debt to GDP ratio.
The country's total IOUs compared to its whole economic output in a year.
Yeah. And the U.S. number, for example, hitting 123% in fiscal 2024. Well, that's a big number. Global government debt also spiked, reaching nearly 100% of global GDP back in 2020.
So what does a number like 123% actually mean for people listening? How does it impact us, or maybe our kids?
Well, there are three main ways it can bite. First, there's a pretty direct financial burden.
Meaning?
Future taxpayers might face higher taxes, or maybe fewer government services, things like roads, schools, healthcare, because more money has to go just to pay interest on the debt.
Like what happened in Greece with all those austerity measures.
Exactly. They had, I think, 12 rounds of cuts and tax hikes after their crisis. That's a stark example.
Okay, what's the second way?
That's the indirect economic burden, sometimes called crowding out. When the government borrows heavily, it can push up interest rates across the board. That makes it more expensive for businesses to invest in new factories or technologies, or for people to buy homes.
So it kind of squeezes out private investment.
Right. And that can stifle productivity growth in the long run, leaving behind a less dynamic economy.
And the third way? Sounds ominous.
It is, potentially. It's the threat of a full-blown fiscal or monetary crisis. If debt gets truly unsustainable, it can really undermine a central bank's power to control inflation. You can get into a situation called fiscal dominance, where essentially the government's need to finance its debt starts dictating monetary policy, rather than the central bank focusing on inflation or employment. That's a path towards instability.
And you mentioned something interesting earlier, that the U.S. is borrowing a lot for today's spending.
Yeah, that's a crucial point often missed. A lot of current borrowing isn't going into, say, massive infrastructure projects or R&D that might boost future growth. It's funding current consumption.
Which makes paying it back later harder without the extra growth.
Exactly. It kind of doubles down on the burden transfer.
And it feels like things are shifting, doesn't it? It's not just the usual economic ups and downs driving debt anymore. Are there deeper, maybe permanent structural forces at play?
Absolutely. And what's tricky is how they connect. First, aging populations in many advanced economies.
Right. Pensions and healthcare.
Yeah, these big pay-as-you-go systems like Social Security and Medicare in the U.S., they face huge unfunded liabilities. Basically, promises made far exceed expected future revenues under current rules.
The U.S. Social Security gap has doubled in 40 years, I read.
That's right. It's a massive slow-motion challenge. Then, layer on top of that the cost of climate change.
Adaptation, mitigation. It sounds expensive.
Hugely. The IMF ran some numbers suggesting that if countries rely only on spending to meet climate goals, without new revenues like, say, carbon pricing, their debt could jump by another 45–50% of GDP by mid-century.
Wow. And then there's technology, AI.
Another double-edged sword. AI could displace jobs, reducing income tax revenue, and maybe increasing welfare costs.
Although maybe it boosts efficiency, too.
Possibly. But the net fiscal impact is still really uncertain, adding another layer of risk.
So these forces are powerful. What happens when countries really push the debt limits? We mentioned Greece.
Yeah, Greece is the cautionary tale about losing market trust, leading to forced, painful austerity. But then you have Japan.
Japan. Always the outlier, right? Debt over 200% of GDP.
Over 230% back in 2015. Yeah, it's an anomaly.
How did they avoid a Greece-style meltdown?
A few key reasons. A lot of their debt is held domestically by Japanese citizens and institutions, not foreign creditors. And crucially, their central bank effectively bought up huge amounts of government bonds. They monetized the debt.
So the central bank printed money to buy the debt?
In essence, yes. It avoided an immediate crisis, but the cost was decades of economic stagnation the last decades. And even now, a huge chunk of their budget, like 22% in 2023, just goes to servicing that debt.
22%?
Right.
Just interest payments?
And principal repayments, yeah. It's a unique path Definitely not a model most countries could or should follow. It shows you can carry high debt under specific conditions, but there's a heavy price.
A very heavy price. Okay, so faced with these burdens, these structural drivers, and these mixed historical lessons, what can actually be done? Is there a way out or a way to manage it better?
Well, there's no single magic bullet, unfortunately. It really needs a combined approach. First, some form of strategic fiscal consolidation.
Meaning spending cuts and tax increases.
A mix, yeah. Carefully planned, ideally phased in. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office in the U.S., floats options like a value-added tax, security, and Medicare.
Those are always politically radioactive options, though, aren't they?
Extremely. That's probably the biggest hurdle, finding the political will. Which leads to the second point. Modernizing how debt is managed. Clear goals, good risk management, keeping debt decisions separate from day-to-day monetary policy.
Making the process more robust.
And more independent, ideally. But ultimately, the most powerful tool, the best way to handle debt, is robust economic growth.
Growing the economy faster than the debt grows.
Exactly. If you can boost the economy's underlying capacity, the debt burden shrinks relative to GDP. That's why using debt for productive investments, things that genuinely boost future output, is so much more sustainable than borrowing just for today's consumption.
Makes sense. Invest to grow rather than just spend.
That's the ideal, yes.
So, summing up then, public debt is clearly a powerful tool governments can use, but it's also quite perilous if not managed carefully.
Very much so. And its unchecked growth, especially driven by these big structural shifts like aging and climate change, it really represents a significant transfer.
A transfer of risks.
Financial risks, economic risks, even political risks onto future generations.
The challenge looks pretty immense, but you're saying a sustainable path is possible with the right choices and, crucially, that political will.
It is possible. Difficult, absolutely, but possible with prudent management and hopefully a focus on long-term growth.
Okay, so for everyone listening, what this really boils down to is thinking about the kind of future we want to leave behind. What kind of national balance sheet, what kind of economic opportunities do we want for those who come after us?
It forces us to confront those trade-offs between today's needs and tomorrow's possibilities.
A crucial question indeed. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.